give a little background of like how did we get where we are today. And one of the things I thought of is if anybody's ever started a fix-it project at home, you know how things can grow. So this started, if I recall, was the concrete out in front of the entrance to the sanctuary was kind of broken up and didn't look good. So we said, well, we ought to fix that. Somebody said, well, you know, if we're going to fix it, rather than just patch it, maybe we ought to put in a new pad. And somebody else, well, we're going to put in a new pad, maybe we ought to consider how big the pad should be, because we might want to enlarge the entrance. And then that's, well, if we're going to enlarge it, what we're going to do? Well, maybe we ought to have, you know, a larger entrance and have a large narthex. So that led to the original consideration plans of putting in a narthex. And then someone else said, well, if we'd rather just change the narthex, maybe we should redo the whole building. And then we said, well, gee, if we're considering building projects, maybe we're going to ask, why should we do any building projects or change anything? So we took a step back and said, why are we doing any of this? And it goes back to our ministry. And I looked over some of the planning that had been done in previous years here and how things kind of were structured. I said, first start with your mission. What is it you're called to do? What is God's work here in this community, in this congregation? And then you look and say, okay, this is the kind of things we should be doing in our mission work, in our ministries. And then you take a look and say, well, to carry that out, how should we be organized? What kind of leadership should we have? What paid position should we have? What lay leadership should we have? And then lastly, what kind of facilities do you need to carry out this work? So that's kind of what led to it. So, well, okay, that's the case. Well, then what is our ministries? And we had some in the past that had been defined, and there had been some work done. We said, you know, times change, times goes by, so maybe we ought to take another look at it. And so we came up and we said, okay, let's get the input from the congregation, and let's look at, you know, what we should be doing. And so I've done this a couple times before at a previous church. I went back and looked at what we've done and how well it worked. I said, well, that seemed to work fairly well. So we came up with 3 questions, which we've been going to groups and asking people. And the questions are, what is Trinity in God's world doing well that should continue to grow? We're doing some good things, and we should grow this. And then the second one is, what are we not doing well or not doing at all that we should be doing to enhance our ministry for Jesus? And then finally, thirdly, is what changes and additions in structure, staffing, and facilities need to be made to meet these changes? So to get this input, I wanted to meet with as many people as possible, all the different groups in that. And thus far, just look at my notes here, I've met, I think, with 4 groups. Okay. I know there was the elders, there's the Wednesday morning women's group, there was the men's club breakfast, and then I've gotten also information from individuals. Yeah, so those 4. So far, in the various groups I've met with, there's been, and there's maybe some duplication or missing here, but about 51 people, and I've got about 32 inputs so far. So what I did then for each of these groups, I read over all the comments and sort of tried to summarize and paraphrase them into some common things. And again, this had to do with planning. There were some of the comments that were good comments, but maybe opinions or suggestions or that, and that's fine. And what we'll do is we'll go through this process, things that relate to just a specific situation or individual report, we'll pass that on to that individual report. Things that are of broader nature, they really have to do with planning, particularly our mission work, will go into this plan. To give a couple definitions for maybe some of you that haven't been involved in planning before, there's usually about 2 levels. One's called strategic, the other's called tactical. Strategic really has to do with what results you want to get or accomplish, what are the main goals or things you have in mind that you'd like to see happen in the future. Tactical has to do with how you get there, how you do it, when you do it, what you do, all those kind of details. For the most part, this 5-year plan is going to be a strategic plan. Say, here's things we want to do. And one of the common ones that's come up that you can talk about as well, improve our facilities. Well, that's a very broad statement. Everybody might agree we're going to do it, but how and when? And so that will lead into the tactical. So that's what we're in the process of doing, is gathering that input. Like I said, I summarize it for each group, and then I take all the groups and summarize it into one common one for the whole congregation. So this is some fun, because there's a variety of comments. People express things different ways, but I'm looking for the theme or the message as to what is it they're trying to say here, and to summarize that in as simple and short a way as possible. So that's kind of where we're at. What you've got, what was handed to you, was the result thus far of all the inputs I've gotten from everybody. So I took all the groups and individual ones and summed it up. And if you look through there, there's quite a list. I expect we'll be getting more comments. There's still a number of the groups I haven't met with that I want to meet with this month. We're going to have a couple more meetings. It was in the schedule. Let's look here. Voters meeting April 21st. We'll be going through this and discussing it and doing a final policy revision. And then finally at the July 21st voters meeting is when it will be presented for either voting on or revision. So some people say, I just got a couple inputs yesterday, handwritten in my email, said, I hope it's not too late. No, it's not too late. We're still gathering this information. So anybody that hasn't completed one of these forms yet can still do so. There's individual forms. I think there's some in the back in the office. I've got them. They can give it to me, handwritten, typed, email, whatever. So I'll let you take a moment and just kind of look over. But on that first page, you know, what are we doing well? And there's been a number of things, and I tried to kind of put them in the order of the most people said this, or something like this. So it's sort of an order of priority as far as number of responses. So you can take a look through that. The second page had to do, you know, what improvements we could make, things that we may not be doing that people thought would be good. And then that third page, of course, had to do with our staffing, our structure, our facilities now. So like I said, I expect to be having some more comments, and then I'll be summarizing this. And the final one, I expect maybe even briefer than this, boiled down to just the really strong main things that we should be focusing on these next 5 years. Give you a minute to look at that, and then answer any questions that I can. Questions? Like I say, we'll still be getting together with the groups I haven't met with yet, and with individuals. You can get the input in a variety of ways. I do have one request, and that's that it be in writing, because I don't remember anything that's not in writing. There's another part of this which complements the inputs we're getting here. Some of you may be familiar with a thing called the Prescott Valley General Plan 2025. And it's what the town sees as happening over the next 12 years, between now and 2025. It's available at the Civic Center. I went and got a disc that has the information on it. is close to about 200 pages, so there's a lot of detail there. I went through the parts that I thought particularly related to us, and one of the things is what's going to happen in the community as far as population around us. And it's interesting, some of you may or may not be familiar with this, but increased town growth. Between 2000 and 2010, so about the last 10 years, the population went from about 24,000 to 39,000. So that's what happened. And you recall, half that period was like a period nothing happened. It was really slow then. So now they've got some forecasts depending on what scenario you use, whether you use the historical growth trend or a moderate growth or an accelerated growth. They expect between now and 2025, the next 12 years, the population is going to go somewhere from about 39,000 up to anywhere from 58,000 to 78,000. That's a 50 to 100% increase in the population around us. So one question comes up is, well, how's that going to affect us? Could we make the assumption the population of town grows, our membership should grow? Maybe, maybe not. So one of the things we're looking at is getting some data on our own attendance. What has our membership been? What has our attendance been? Does that correlate at all with what's happening around us in the town? We're looking at that. Another thing that you may be surprised at, some people have the impression that, well, Prescott Valley is a bunch of old people that don't make much money. That's not what the town says. But it's almost evenly spread along across all age groups. The largest single group is those under age 18. There's higher percentage in that group than any other group. About 2/3 of the population is under the age of 65. The income levels, the average, I think, median of somewhere in the mid-40s and that. So anyway, that's one of the things that, again, as to, well, what's happening around us. Another part is interesting, if we've got all these young people, what's the inference for God's world? What's our growth going to be there? So one of the things I want to look at is, what is our growth in God's world? And what is expected in the town? And if we weren't limited in any way by facilities or staffing like that, what could be the number of children attending God's world? And that shows what our potential is. And then we have to decide what do we want to do about that. So these are some of the things I'm looking at to try and answer these questions of, where do we go in the future, particularly the